IT leaders tasked with reimagining business operations may balk at the prospect of reshaping infrastructure to meet digital sovereignty imperatives. But the truth is that redesigning infrastructure to drive up business resilience will in fact be a key enabler of growth and innovation. In episode 2 of this CIO webcast series with Red Hat, we'll aim to explain why. I'll be talking to Chris Jenkins, Senior Principal Chief Architect, EMEA CTO Office, Red Hat. Chris, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Vic. It's great to be here.
First question then, how can IT leaders in the sort of rush to adopt AI, how can they own their decision-making logic without slowing down their sort of innovation plans?
Great question there, Vic. So from a digital sovereignty point of view, when I talk around it with customers and partners, it's quite a nebulous subject. There's no real definition around digital sovereignty. So I like to use analogies to try and put things into context a little bit more. So for this specific one, analogy would be the external brain and the internal brain. So the external brain could be, you have an external consultant come in to help you build your AI logic. You've said, we need this, and they've come back with the answer. But they haven't told you how they got to that answer. So if that consultant were to move on to a different project, you've lost all of that knowledge. You have to start all over again. So having that internal expert, then you can build your AI logic, your configuration, all of your components using internal tools. And using open source principles, having collaborative sharing environments helps you speed up these tooling. So from the organization's point of view, they gain at the organizational level and for the process level, and also the associates, the staff themselves gain by learning this logic around AI and how to implement it within the organization.
So Chris, it sometimes feels that IT leaders are faced with this stark choice, adopt public cloud for speed and those benefits, or stay on-prem because of the sovereignty concerns. But what about the approach of an open hybrid cloud, which kind of challenges that false binary in a way, and also potentially preserves that right to exit? What would you say?
Yep. So I think from our customers' point of view, they saw some of the activities that have happened over the last couple of years and said we need to move away from hyperscalers and move onto either on-prem infrastructure or to sovereign clouds. And that could be seen as a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. So understandably, yes, there's reasons why, as you're saying, from a hyperscaler point of view, speed, resilience, it can be a really good idea. But it's not a binary thing. You're not going to move all of your infrastructure and all of your workloads from a hyperscaler to a sovereign cloud provider or an on-prem cloud provider, because that takes a very, very long time. But having the open hybrid cloud concept could allow you to move certain workloads. So we can say these workloads contain specific data within my organization, which for regulatory compliance reasons needs to remain in country. So having that open hybrid cloud concept, you can also use the hyperscalers, the public cloud, the private cloud, and the sovereign cloud together. So it creates this harmonious environment. So it's not a binary, like you were saying, all or nothing. You can use both. So on-prem, hyperscaler, and sovereign clouds as well.
Yes, and of course, we also hear about this concept of sovereignty by design. Now, does that actually increase developer velocity by removing the friction of vendor-specific roadmaps, or is it just adding another layer of complexity?
So sovereignty by design, if we take it back a step to go back to the concepts of security by design. So we have secure by design, you build in security into your software development lifecycle. And then from that, you have secure by default. So hardened infrastructure, hardened applications. So sovereign by design is a very similar concept. So you would build in the sovereign principles and requirements for your organization into your trusted software supply chain. So you have secure by design, secure by default, and then sovereign by design using the platforms that you currently have and the workflows that you have and the software development life cycles that you have, and implement the security-related gating into those specific processes that you're running. So yes, you can have sovereign by design, and then you could also have by default, sovereign by default. So you can say for these specific workloads, they must run on-prem. So you have sovereign by default based on either data or workloads.
Thanks, Chris. And just moving on to the sort of the more of the regulation side of things, with these software DNA regulations, how does the upstream first model sort of, if you like, protect the supply chain?
So the software DNA, I shall ask you a question there, Vic. Would you eat something if you didn't know what the ingredients were?
Probably not.
So a similar kind of thing from a software point of view, you really wouldn't want to be using a piece of software without knowing where the components come from. So from an IT point of view, they call this the software bill of materials, an SBOM. So basically, it's a recipe of the software that you're using. Regulatory compliance in some organizations say we must provide this software bill of materials. So you can understand the components and then the transitive dependencies, any vulnerabilities of the packages used within it. So that's from the kind of the software DNA. So the DNA helix of it would be the software bill of materials. So from a Red Hat point of view, we use the principle of Upstream First. As you know, we use open source software. So we take the open source software, bring it internally into Red Hat, and then do quality assurance, quality engineering, testing, security testing. If we find any issues, any patches, any bugs, the first thing we do is put it back upstream to the open source community and then pull it back down into Red Hat. So we take the upstream software, the code, we check it for any issues, dependencies, vulnerabilities, software changes. If we find any, we don't just save them within Red Hat, we put them back into the upstream community and pour them back down again. And this goes back from a Red Hat point of view, we can update the ingredients. So we can say it was version 1.2 of this, Red Hat have done some security changes, it's version 1.3, and put that upstream first. And then when customers go to look at the software, they can look at the recipe, the software bill of material, and see it's been upgraded with these new bug fixes, changes, or security issues resolved.
Oh, and security, of course, absolutely key. So, Chris, in a world of machine speed threats, can we bake in sovereignty into those all-important automated delivery pipelines?
Definitely. And it's great that you use the term automation as well, because a lot of pipelines traditionally were quite manual processes. So you'd have a manual process from code to build to deploy to manage, lots of manual processes in there. And as human beings, we do make mistakes every now and again. So having automated, resilient processes that you can do from code, build, deploy, and runtime makes it smoother, it makes it easier, and it gives you the logging, the monitoring, the assurance to say what went into the start of this project and what came out the end of the project. So automated compliance, automated testing, so penetration testing, application testing as you go through, baking all of that into the pipelines. It takes the human element out of it, and it also gives you the guidelines and the roadmap and the outcomes of the actual process that you are running through.
I mean, this is such an interesting debate. And of course, we're talking a lot at the moment about AI. Now, can you truly be AI first if you are not sovereign first in the world that we live in today?
I'd love to give you a politician's answer of it depends. So I think, yes, in a way you can. But again, it's having that fundamental infrastructure on which you're running. So you could have sovereign first from a workload point of view. And then you could have AI first as the data that underpins that specific application. So you have sovereign first and AI first. But again, from an AI point of view, we were talking about data. AI is reliant on data. So you need to have your data stored in a secure manner, access to your data in a secure manner, and understanding your data classification, your data taxonomy. So all of that from an AI first point of view, and then with it running in a sovereign environment. So you control the environment of your AI data as it runs through, again, its life cycle.
Thank you. And perhaps just for our audience, there's so much for them to think about from this discussion, but are there any early steps that you would recommend that they take in this area of sovereignty that's emerging?
So I would say from an IT leader's point of view is understand where you currently are when it comes to digital sovereignty. As you mentioned at the top, it's quite a nebulous subject. So understanding from operations, technical assurance, executive leadership, from an open source point of view, where you currently are. So there was a wonderful comment from Lewis Carroll that said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So using that mantra from a digital sovereignty point of view, use an assessment tool. So Red Hat have open sourced a digital sovereignty assessment tool to understand your as-is situation. That will give you the baseline of where you currently stand regarding digital sovereignty. Then from there, as an organization, you can work out your to-be stand to say, where do we want to get to? You may not want to be 100% digitally sovereign. Depends on the organization. But knowing the as-is situation, the to-be situation, you can then work out the delta and plan how to increase your maturity across digital sovereignty, across all the holistic areas.
Thank you, Chris. And that does bring us to the end of this discussion where we looked at how IT leaders can both innovate and maintain and develop practices toward digital sovereignty. I'd like to thank Chris for sharing his expert insight, as well as everyone who watched. And remember, there are more videos that you can watch in this CIO webcast series with Red Hat. Goodbye.